Hi, this is Joe with PrepAgent. I'm here with my friend Daniel. How's it going, Daniel?
It's going good.
Your test is coming up soon, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I think you said it's next Tuesday, right?
That's correct.
All right, so we don't have a lot of time, but we're going to get you passed. And I wanted to use a little bit of a different technique that we've used in other webinars where we just go through questions. What I do with a lot of people as they're studying for their exam, I tell them make sure you know keywords. And what I mean by that is when you see a word, you're able to identify that word using another very short word. For example, real property, immovable, things of that nature. Okay? And the reason I like to do that is remembering that word is much easier than remembering a big long sentence or a big paragraph. Do you agree?
I do agree.
And so that's our goal today as we go through this is to nail down those keywords. So when you do the questions on your exam or even in the practice exam questions, you're able to identify key concepts much quicker. Then after you have all these keywords down, doing those questions will just come much easier to you and you'll get it done much faster and you'll pass your exam. So
Perfect.
good. So what I did today is I put together a lot of words here. We're going to try and fill them out the best we can. Kind of similar to the webinar I did with Irene. I don't know if you saw that one. Did you see that one?
Yes, I believe so.
Right. So it's a very similar concept, but it's a little more organized. And by the way, I'm going to have this outline on my website for anybody who wants it, for all the members. So if you want to get this, you can get it there. But for now, let's begin. Now, what's the one I just mentioned? Let's start with that one.
Real property, immovable.
Good. So let's bang out some of the easy ones here. So do you know bundle of rights?
Yes, these are the rights that an owner has when they own property.
All right. So here's a great example. You kind of understand it, but the definition you just gave is not really going to help you pass the exam.
hmm
What I was looking for is the right to use, to sell, to possess, to encumber, and to do whatever you want with it. But I wanted those key phrases. So,
Got it. I have an acronym.
oh, what's your
Deep
acronym?
C.
Share with us.
Deep Deep C.
Okay. I hope my spelling's not bad.
Just C. Just the letter C after deep.
Excellent. Good. Okay. So what does it stand for?
Disposition, exclusion, enjoyment, possession, and control.
Exclusion. Got a little spell check going here. Okay, so good. So I always say the right to use, possess, enjoy, but it means the same thing. Either way, you're using the right concept. Short keywords to understand what the meaning of the word is. So let's get
Mhm.
down this. Real property, immovable, personal property. What do you got?
Movable.
Boom. Good. Now, the answer may not be movable on your exam, just so we understand the concept here. But you'll see something like a chair, like, that's chair, that's movable, personal property. Boom. Okay? Good.
Got it.
By the way, what's this one?
I know that it's personal property
Why?
because you chattel is like cattle and cattle moves.
You've listened to my other webinars. I'm so yes, I'll tell you. That sounds like cattle. Cattle is cows, and cows move. Once again, sounds ridiculous for us as adults to say that, but when you pass your exam, you'll be fine, right? You'll have no problem that you said that. So
Right.
cattle, cows move. Chattel real is a fancy word for personal property. Okay, fixture. What do you
Got
got
it.
for fixture?
Fixtures attached to real property.
Okay, but there's a one-word name that should come up that should encompass the whole concept.
Maria.
Bam, good. And I really like how you're understanding what I'm getting at. Hopefully everybody listening to this is understanding as well. Maria is one word. Okay. Does it define what a fixture is? No, but it gives a real good hint that'll kind of trigger you along the path of what does Maria stand for?
Method, adaptability, relationship, intention, and agreement.
Excellent. And that's the point of the key word. So you said fixture, Maria, boom, everything else. And this is much better than if I say what's a fixture. If you say, well, a fixture is something in the contract where it could be written in and it's attached by certain methodology, blah, blah, blah. You're not going to remember that. You will remember Maria.
Right.
Okay.
Can we dive into why, like, what does method mean? What does adaptability mean?
Yeah, very
What I mean?
simply. And I'll try and explain in key words. So a method is just how you attach it. Nail against the wall. Okay? Adaptability, example of that would be like a pool covering. Does a pool covering go with the land?
No.
Why not? Why do you say it doesn't?
Because it could be removed.
However, it's adapted to that property.
Ah, so you can't.
Right.
Okay.
Maybe not pool covering is not the best example. Maybe a better one would be blinds on a window.
Got it. Yeah. Okay.
Those are movable, but they're adapted to that property. Relation to talk about landlord-tenant. Intention has to do with the agreement why it was there. Excuse me, intention is why it was there, and agreement supersedes everything. That's that contract. When you write a purchase contract, you will see a section that says fixtures where you write it in. The agreement essentially supersedes everything else. But that's essentially the short answer for you of what those 5 things are about without getting too much into it.
So if a seller wants to take a fixture with them, they have to denote it in the contract.
Well, no, a fixture goes with the property. They would have to say, yes, I'm sorry, yes. So the seller wanted to take it, have to denote with them in the contract.
Got it. Okay.
Yes. Okay, here we go. Trade fixture.
Trade fixture is personal property, and
There's a key word.
it runs with the person.
There's a key word we're looking for here, though. For business. Business, good. But you were absolutely right. Trade fixture is for personal property. Fixture is personal property becomes real property. A trade fixture is a fixture that's now personal property. Can you give an example of that?
Dentist chair.
Why?
Because it belongs to the business. If a dentist leaves the space where he's conducting his practice, he's taking his chair with him.
Exactly. And on my end, if I'm taking over that space, I don't want a big gnarly dentist chair in the middle of the room. You know, and the dentist chair doesn't want to leave it there. The thing's expensive. So it's personal property. It goes with them. Riparian rights. One word.
River.
Is river really the definition of riparian rights?
No.
So why is it a good key word?
Because the definition will have the word river in it.
No. Because riparian rights has to do with owning property by a moving body of water or water course.
Okay.
An example is a river. So it could be a stream, creek, things of that nature as well. It has to do with moving water. As opposed to littoral rights, which is when you're abutting a lake or an ocean.
Got it.
Okay? All right, so we're obviously not going to hit every word, so I may skip around a little bit here. But hopefully you're really getting the concept and why this will really help you get the questions and make it much easier to take in a lot of material. One of the things we spoke about on the phone is learning another language, because I try and make that parallel. And do you remember what we spoke about when I said somebody who has to learn another language, or if you go to another country where you don't know the language, what you do?
You look for the key words.
Exactly. And what we're talking about here applies to anybody who's had to learn another language. If I go to a Latin country and I don't know Spanish, I don't know everything that they're saying, but I listen for words like comida, which is food, caminar, which is walk, I listen for the key words so I can understand the greater scope of what's going on. And
Got it.
same thing here. Real estate's a new language. Okay. So appurtenances. What's appurtenance?
They stay with the land. They run with the land.
Good. Keeping it real simple. All right, so let's skip down a little more here, so we get to other concepts here.
Mm-hmm.
Stayed for years.
That is an estate for a fixed period of time.
Good. You've been studying, man. I can tell. You're going to do. Okay. Stay sufferance.
Deadbeat tenant.
Deadbeat. Not only you've been studying, it sounds like you've been studying my stuff.
You got the best stuff, Joe.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Title.
That's about ownership.
Okay. Good. You're doing so well. It almost sounds like we rehearsed this, but can you please verify for everybody listening we did not rehearse this? Like you're getting it.
We have not rehearsed this.
No, I'm waiting for you to get some wrong here. So take that compliment as a vote of confidence that you're going to do fine on your exam, and you'll be selling in no time. Okay, so titles, ownership. Okay, so severalty.
By yourself.
Good. So that's somebody who owns property on their own. Current estate then would be?
With more than one person.
Good. And I was going to say with others, but same. What you said would work just fine. Okay. Joint tenancy.
That's with more than one person, but you can't. No survivorship. Or there is a right of survivorship. There is a right of survivorship.
That's excellent that you said that. What I was looking for, time, title, interest, possession to tip.
Okay.
But you were spot on with what you said as well. Going along, community property.
That's with when you own property with a spouse. Marriage.
Good. All right, encumbrances. That's a big one. You've got to know what an encumbrance is because that encompasses a lot of things.
Right. I know that it's a burden.
Good. Burden, limitation.
On the land.
Excellent. Let's start there. So that, and once again, if you understand that it's a limitation on your property,
Mm-hmm.
then it will also help you to understand many other concepts. For example, examples of encumbrances. What's an example of an encumbrance?
Lien.
Good. What's a lien?
It's money owed on the property.
Can you give me an example of a lien?
Mechanic's lien.
What's that?
It's if you hire somebody to do work on your property and they have yet to be paid, the mechanic, the person who's doing the work, will put a lien to get paid.
Is that a voluntary lien or involuntary lien?
Involuntary.
But I don't understand. Why would anybody have a voluntary lien? That's involuntary. That sounds ridiculous to volunteer to have a lien. Why would somebody volunteer to have a lien?
If they need to borrow money.
Excellent.
And they have to pay it back.
So a loan is an example of a voluntary lien. A mechanic's lien is an involuntary lien. Is that loan a general or specific lien?
The mechanic's lien?
The loan, the loan from the bank, the trust deed or mortgage.
That's a general lien.
Oh, okay. You're doing great. I finally got you. Okay, let me ask you, do you own a house or do you rent?
I rent, unfortunately.
That's okay. So somebody owns their house. If they don't pay, what do they lose?
Someone owns their house.
They don't
pay. They lose their house.
They lose anything else?
No.
Specific lien. General
specifically?
lien would be if they could come after things above and beyond that property.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Taxes. If
What?
you don't pay your taxes, you're in trouble. They're coming after everything.
That's a general lien.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Like judgment liens, when the court is coming after you, things of that nature.
Okay.
But a loan is a specific lien, which is why they had that problem years ago not to get in practice, people walking away from their homes
Right.
because they knew they'd only lose their home, and the money situation was such that they said, fine. Okay, police power.
That's all about keeping people safe.
Good, the general welfare. Can you give an example of police power?
Zoning.
Good. A police power is a government power, correct?
Correct.
Let's write that in. What are the government powers?
Government powers are PEAT, police power, eminent domain, taxation, and escheat.
Good. Can you give an example of a zone?
A zone is R1 for single family.
Okay, and R3 would be multifamily residential. Excellent. What's a variance?
A variance is when when you need to apply for something to get accepted because
So if you had to
land.
put that in one word to make it easier, and you see where I'm going with this, I think this is a really good exercise for us to get you past the exam. Because the other thing that's happening, when you can put it in one word, you're demonstrating true understanding. And you could probably sense it in your own voice, correct?
Right.
It's like the more you're talking, the more it's not concise, which when you understand it. Like when I said variance, you're like, it's this thing where you gotta accept something's not right. So if you could put in one word, what would you put it as?
Exception.
Excellent. See, when you say that with confidence, you're like, boom, that's what it is, and know what it's all about.
Got it.
Okay, downzoning.
Downzoning is commercial to residential.
And what I recommend for people who are listening, and for you as well, Daniel, is when you do this on your own, write
Mm-hmm.
it out. Just do all this and write it out. The act of writing will help you remember. People with ADD always use that technique. At least they should, because it keeps you focused on a task when you're trying to do this, rather than just looking at a piece of paper and hopefully it sinks in. I know what you're thinking. I don't have ADD. You will when you study real estate law for the exam. You know, it's kind of. I mean, if you don't have ADD, you will when you look at this stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
This stuff is not the easiest to
Pretty
focus.
monotonous.
Am I right? I mean, you seem like
Yeah.
a pretty focused guy, but when you looked at this, you were like, oh man, bird, squirrel,
God help me.
right? It's like, what? Kitten video? Gotta watch that now. So, yeah, okay. Grandfather clause when you're grandfathered in, multifamily residential. Give that example, R3. Encroaching.
Trespassing
Bam.
or a trespass.
Liens.
Money owed.
Lien money, lien money, lien money, lien money, lien money. We went over what a general lien, a specific lien, mechanics lien, lease pendants.
This is Liz's law. It's a pending lawsuit.
Good. So basically, when you're trying to sell a property, if somebody files a lease pendants, that's bad news. Because basically what's happening, they're saying you don't have the right to sell it. They're suing you over title, ownership. So they can't relinquish the property. It's bad if that ever happens.
The owner can't relinquish because someone's suing them.
Somebody's saying you're not the owner.
Got it.
Somebody legally filed. Sadly, it happens a lot when divorced people one former spouse sell it, the other comes in. That's just an example. There's many
That makes sense.
examples, but that's a very easy example. The former spouse comes in and says, hey, you can't sell that without me. I'll file lease pendants.
Got it.
And then the poor buyer who's expecting a new home is like, what? What just happened? Okay. Injunction.
That's when you need to stop or prevent something from happening.
You're on the right path. I'm looking for a specific party.
A specific party?
I'll just tell you, I was looking for the court. It's not
the court.
You got the court involved, and that's a key part of an injunction.
Okay.
Okay? It's a court order to stop. All right. Cloud on title.
Means that there's something affecting the title.
Right, just take something's cloudy.
Yeah, blurry.
Going back to that example would be, the change of names.
Mm-hmm.
For example, a woman gets married, but the title's under her former name, and now she's
so it's different.
Name.
Mm-hmm.
Is it easy to clear up? Sure, but it is still something that needs to be taken care of.
It's still cloudy.
Yes. Eminent domain.
That's when the big, powerful government comes to town.
Okay.
And takes your property.
For what?
For improving resources. Public use.
Right? So it's a good way to... It's saying the same thing you're saying. I'm just putting it in more simple, only because I've looked at this for years now. But you essentially have the right idea. Okay, so you can't really know what inverse condemnation is if you don't know what condemnation is.
Compensation.
Bam. Excellent. You're going to kill it. Good. Now, just so we're clear, everybody listening, what Daniel's doing here is not going to get him past the exam. He's still going to have to do questions. But what this is, it gives him the foundation to get past the exam. Him learning the question is going to come a lot faster, a lot easier. So my point is, you don't just do this and finish. I look at it kind of like stretching and doing all the exercises and working out before you do like the heavy lifting. It really sets you up correctly. Maybe that's not the best example, but you get the idea. My hope is, Daniel, after you go back and do questions, you're going to be like, this is so much easier now.
That's the hope.
Yeah, it will be.
We're going to make it happen.
I'll tell you what, I'll guarantee you, even if it doesn't help, it's not going to hurt. It's not going to hurt you knowing the vocabulary.
Definitely not.
But I believe it'll help and make everything go a lot faster. The other reason I do this is when you do multiple choice questions, how do you do them? So take me to your thought process. You look at a multiple choice question. What happens?
First, I read it all through, and then I scan for words that would trigger a response.
Okay, so what you're essentially doing, though, when you read the whole thing through first, you're reading wrong information. Like the wrong answers, you're reading irrelevant information in the question. So what I'd want to do is scan for these keywords first. So you see real property, immovable, bam. You could circle that. Maybe after that, read through it to make sure, but you're on the right path right off the bat. You see real property, immovable, personal property, movable, condemnation, compensation, or something related to that. Because what I don't want you doing is second guessing yourself over answers that really aren't correct. And you're sitting here, think about it, and mull over it. And you know what happens.
Yeah. They're meant to trick you.
And they do. And so this helped to make sure you don't get tricked as easily, because this is honing in on the correct information. And when you take your actual exam, it's one thing to look over all the questions, but when you're practicing and you're sitting over mulling over wrong information while you're doing practice tests, practice questions, that's not good because you're spending a lot of time taking in information that will not be correct on your test. Hopefully
Got it. Okay.
correctly. Did that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, here we go. Okay, so we were saying condemnation is compensation. So what's inverse condemnation then?
That's when you need to sue because you weren't properly compensated.
Yeah, so what's the deal here? Eminent domain, they take your property for public use. Example, they expand a highway, and the highway goes in your property, and they need to purchase your property because the community needs that highway. It sucks for you, but that's what it is. You shouldn't have bought a house close to the highway. But what they will say is like, listen, we know your house's value, we'll give you money. Condemnation. However, if you're sitting here saying that highway is ruining my house and you gave me nothing, you file for inverse condemnation. And that's how that works. Okay, escheat, what's that?
That's someone dies and they don't have a will and they don't have heirs.
Right.
And the government takes away the property.
Exactly. Okay. Testate versus intestate?
Dying with or without a will.
Which one's which?
Intestate means without a will.
You sure about that?
No.
Okay.
Yes.
Don't sound so sure. All right, here we go. Intestate is condition of a state of a person who dies owning property whose value is greater than the sum of the forcible without having made a valid will.
That's what I said.
Good. You didn't sound confident. You sounded very insecure. Okay, deeds.
Yes.
What's that?
Deeds is how to convey ownership.
It's more than that.
Transfer ownership?
It's the evidence of the transfer.
Evidence of the transfer.
Yeah. What's ownership?
Ownership is title.
Good. Excellent. And what I also want people to notice as we're doing this, if you listen to my other webinars, and I told Daniel this before we got into this, when we do questions, we hit, 5 questions, maybe 6? 6 concepts. If everybody notices just how many concepts we've gone over in the short period of time we've been doing this already. So by doing this method of filling out this outline and writing things in, you're going to cover a lot more material in a much shorter period of time, because once again, you're not wasting your time on irrelevant information. So I really recommend this, that people do this as they start their studying.
Brilliant, Joe.
Thank you. Title is, repeat it one more time for me.
Ownership.
Therefore, chain of title would be?
The record of ownership.
Okay, good. So that's the key word, but what actually is it? Do you understand what it is?
The chain of title,
Yeah.
It means everyone who's owned it before you.
Yeah, more or less. Like you owned it, sold it to me, I sold it to whoever. Why is that important?
Because there could be liens on the previous owners.
Which
You
would
need to know who they are.
which would affect the title, right?
Right.
Which would affect my ownership as the new owner. Who checks that?
The escrow company?
There's an insurance you'll get.
Oh, a title insurance company.
Yeah, that's their whole role. When you talk about title insurance, their main premise of title insurance is to make sure the ownership is clear and marketable title.
Mm-hmm.
Everything transfers correctly. When you hear the word abstract, what do you think of?
A summary.
Good. Impounds. Give me an example of it.
Ooh. I don't know.
Taxes and insurance.
Uh-huh.
Basically, if you get a loan, who gets paid first? Taxes or the loan people?
Taxes.
Right. So they're going to create an impound account to make sure it's collected so that gets paid, because they know if that doesn't get paid, they're not getting paid.
Right.
And that's what impound accounts are all about. Escrow. One word that should come up.
Shit. Middleman.
Close. Neutral.
Neutral party.
You know, what you said is fine, too. I mean, the key thing is that one word in your mind, whatever that word is, for everybody studying, whatever word worked for you, to segue to a larger whole. So when you study this, you look up escrow. You're going to see a big paragraph. Your exercise when you do this is, what one word can I find that will really define this larger concept for me? Think of it almost like, what hint would I use?
Mm-hmm.
And because the idea is the less you have to memorize, the better off you are.
Amen.
Amen. Yeah. Misrepresentation.
Fraud.
Oh, no. There's a big difference in those two things as well.
Not sure.
What I just read.
So misrepresentation is
Oops.
not on purpose.
Fraud, you knew what you were doing.
And fraud, yeah.
Yeah, misrepresentations, whoops, my bad. I mean, what's the big difference? Well, if there's intention, insurance won't back you up if you get sued. And I don't want to
Right.
segue into actual practice, but that's when people tell me what is on this exam is not relevant, I don't like that, because a lot of this stuff is relevant. For example, if you get sued for fraud, you should know you're in big trouble. Whereas misrepresentation, insurance may back you up with your errors and omissions. When it's fraud, they're not backing you up because that shows you had an intention to cause harm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. RESPA.
I know that it has to do with 1 to 4 family dwellings.
I like that. Good.
And
What's the gist of RESPA? Like, why is it even there? Just, like, what's the gist of it?
To provide information about property.
Yeah, it's basically so people know what they're getting themselves into. The reason it's 1 to 4, because businesses, larger ones, they should know better, theoretically. And RESPA's big time you see it is to prevent kickbacks. So let's write kickbacks here. Here's what it's trying to prevent. I'm selling somebody on a property. And I tell you, you're my client, you should use this loan officer. You trust me, you like me, you think I'm a good guy. So why do you think I told you to use that loan officer?
because you're going to get money from them.
Well, no.
You're referring.
That's what's bad. So if you think I'm a good guy, you think I'm referring to them.
Right. That's what you don't want to happen.
Right, because they're good at what they do. If you trust me, you're saying, Joe, I trust you. If you say that guy's good, I believe he's good. I believe in you, so, I'll go with it. You'd be pretty pissed if you found out, I don't even know the guy, but the only reason I referred him is because he gave me $500. Wouldn't you feel violated and annoyed if you're like, you didn't even know him? Why, you're getting money off my back and I didn't even know it? That's what RESPA is supposed to do.
Yes, I would be angry.
Yeah. Okay, tenant improvement allowances. Oops, I accidentally wrote this in. Abandonment.
That's when a tenant leaves his unit, his or her unit.
There's a key word here.
Just uh, voluntary.
Voluntary. When a tenant leaves the unit voluntarily.
Okay.
Okay, sublease.
That's when you transfer possession, but you're still responsible.
Excellent. Possession, but not responsibility. A lot of people are familiar with this in your everyday life. Once again, real estate exam material and everyday life practice. I rent a property. I'm going away for a few months. I sublet it to my friend. However, I'm still responsible to the landlord.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Steering and blockbusting, panic selling, panic peddling all have to do with discrimination. All have to do with people saying those
Yes.
people in one way or another. But what's the difference between the two?
Steering is when you push people towards a certain neighborhood.
Good. And this one is?
Selling.
Yeah, so steering is essentially if I'm in a car driving you and I say, Daniel, you should buy here because you're one of those people and your people live over here. You should live here. It's totally good for you. Steering. Panic peddling or blockbusting, if I go to you, you know what, you should sell. You know why? Those people are moving to town. You don't want to live by them, do you? Okay, that would be blockbusting, panic peddling, or panic selling. Okay, a valid contract. The 4 essentials of a valid contract.
They are, you have to be competent and capable.
Mm-hmm.
There needs to be mutual consent. You have to be, there has to be some kind of compensation or consideration,
Mm-hmm.
and it all must be legal.
Bam. Good. Unfortunately, there's
Is there an acronym for that one?
not really because there's no vowel.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, so kind of need a vowel for those acronyms to work.
This is true.
Yeah. So unfortunately, it's just is what it is. Okay. Voidable contract.
Voidable means that it's valid unless you exercise a right to void it.
What's an example of? Give me one word.
Um, if it's signed by a minor.
I'm looking for one that's a little more. The minor one has a lot of if, ands, or buts behind it.
Right. If you're under duress.
Good. So my feeling, does duress define a voidable contract? No. But if you know voidable duress, in my head at least, for me, that triggers everything else. Okay, he's under duress. That means he was forced to buy it, but he still has the option to buy it. Just because I'm being forced to buy it doesn't mean I shouldn't be able to buy it. The example I always use is if I hold a gun to you and said, buy the property, buy the hot property, and you buy it, you have to buy the property.
No.
However, you may say what?
You may say, oh, well, it's a good deal. I might as well go for it.
Yeah, you may say, Joe, the gun was completely unnecessary. That was a little insane. I was totally into this property. You went a little overboard, man. So me going crazy shouldn't stop you from getting a beautiful property.
Right.
Okay. Bilateral contract.
Promise for a promise.
Bam. Mm-hmm. Which would make a
That's like a wanted poster.
you said promise or promise here. What would be the equivalent here?
One promise. Promise for an act.
But essentially what you're saying, it's one promise. There's only one promise.
Mm-hmm.
2 promises. Give me an example of a bilateral contract.
A listing agreement.
Perfect. Unilateral?
The wanted poster,
Okay.
like a lost dog or lost cat or something.
Can you give me a real
For the
estate
person.
example? Right. Ooh.
Um,
Any contract that has the word option in it, by definition, is unilateral.
got it.
Did you see why? Because the word option directly contradicts the word promise.
Right. You either can or you
Right.
don't.
So if there's
You
an
do or you
option,
don't.
by definition, I'm not promising to do anything. I'm writing in the contract, as a matter of fact, that I don't know what I'm going to do. I want the option to go either way.
Okay.
See, a lot of that, like you didn't think of it, you were thinking lost dog, but once I said that, you're like, oh, that makes total sense. That's right. That's right there. Option, yeah. Lease option, listing with an option, things of that nature.
Got
Okay,
it.
executed contract.
Means both parties have signed.
Good. Statute of frauds.
Um, it's about it needs to be in writing, and contracts need to be in writing. That I'm unclear on.
Statute of frauds is
Time.
writing. Statute of limitations has to do with time frames. Okay.
Okay.
Oh,
so like if it's more or less than a year or something like that?
yeah, I was about to. Can you give an example of a real estate contract that doesn't need to be in writing?
Um, an estate for years?
A lease under 1 year would be an example.
A lease under 1 year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Novation is Latin for
New.
you could almost go reverse on this one.
Reverse. Old.
No, I was going to say, if you look at what you said about bilateral, what I'm getting at here is a listing is a bilateral
Uh-huh. Oh, I got you.
employment
Contract.
contract. Yeah. Who's the employer?
The employer is the seller.
Who are they employing?
They're employing the brokerage.
Wait a minute, hold on. The seller never even meets the broker. He meets the agent who got their license who passed this test. Why are you saying the broker?
Because the agent is the agent works for the broker, and all listing agreements are held with the brokerage.
Excellent. Good. So the seller is hiring the broker. You know, people think the agent, really the agent's just working on the broker's behalf.
Right.
How do you know? Because when the money's paid, it doesn't go to the agent. It goes to the broker, and the broker allocates it according to whatever agreement they have. What are they hiring the broker to do?
They're hiring the broker to find a buyer.
Excellent. The key point there, you're not hired to sell a house. You're hired to find a ready, willing, and able buyer. Good stuff. Different types of listings here, right?
Yes, sir.
Exclusive listing, what does that mean?
It means that only one broker can sell the home. You're only allowing one broker to sell the home. But the owner can also sell the home.
No, don't go there yet. Okay, let me stop you. Exclusive listing is there. Now there's two different types of exclusive listings. The next one is what you're talking about. So there's two different types. In fact, I probably should have went like this.
The old indent.
Yes. Now, what you were about to describe is an exclusive agency listing.
Yes, which is one broker and the owner. And
Good.
also,
One
can
broker,
either one can sell it.
but owner can sell. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So thus, that broker would have to prove that they're the procuring cause of the buyer in order to get paid. Because this is a bad idea. It's essentially you're competing with the owner. That's why the
Right.
common one you see in real estate is exclusive authorization and right to sell. And you see this written on top of the listing agreements. People don't notice it because they don't know what it means, but it's right there. And what does this mean?
That means that the owner cannot sell the house. Only the broker can.
Not find a buyer.
Not find a buyer.
Yes. So how would you say this then? To really, because remember, you know it now, but when you're taking your test and there's all these concepts, what's like one or two words, maybe three, that will really help you remember what you just said?
They have to, no need to provide proof.
Right.
That's
And
what is
sometimes you
needed.
hear the word procuring cause.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Net listing, which is illegal in most states, is what?
That's if you agree with the seller to sell the home at a specific price, and then any amount of money that you get above that price, the broker gets to keep.
Why is that a horrible idea? And borderline
Well,
illegal
the broker,
in most states, not just horrible, it's sometimes not even allowed.
it creates an opportunity for a secret profit.
You're getting too fancy on me. You want 500 grand for your house, right?
Yes.
You say get a net listing, and you say, Joe, anything over 500 grand, you get to keep. I just want my 500 grand. You sell it for $1 million, you could double up and you keep 500 grand yourself. And you say that's a great idea, and you tell me any money above and beyond 500 grand, you go. Sounds good, right?
Mm-hmm.
But here's the problem: buyer comes in for 500 grand.
So you're left with nothing.
So what will I do? I will magically make that guy disappear. I just won't present it. Why? Because I'm not going to make any money off that. So but that's not fair to you as the seller, because legally I should be presenting that because it satisfies your need as the seller, and my fiduciary duty says I should present that to you. But there's an inherent conflict of interest there.
Why does it even exist?
It doesn't in a lot of states, and they understand. There's word for illegal things too. That's like saying why is block booking exist or steering exist. There's
Right.
things that aren't allowed. So that's that net listing. Okay. Puffing?
That's when you exaggerate.
Actual fraud?
That's when you're lying on purpose.
Intention? We're going to do these. Let's do these two last ones and we'll be done. It's been an hour. Value, the four essential elements of value.
Stud.
What does that stand for?
That is scarcity.
Yeah.
Whether or not it can be transferred, transferability.
Yep, fancy word for selling it.
How useful it is.
Good.
And does anybody even want it?
Good man. Excellent. Good. So you got that. Plottage, we'll end on this one. What that is?
Ooh. That means multiple units.
Too fancy. Have you been to a wedding recently?
Yeah, my wedding.
Oh, congratulations. Good for you. Whenever you hear these speeches, I don't know about your wedding, but a lot of these weddings, you hear the same speech, which is, excuse me, which is, individually, you guys are wonderful, but together, You guys are amazing, you know. And the
Yeah.
idea is this concept: 1 + 1 = 3.
Got it.
And for those of you who don't know what I mean, who are saying 1 + 1 = 2, not 3, what I'm trying to get at is the individual pieces put together are worth a lot more than they are separately. So plot is when you combine the units and the value increases. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And I'm sure somebody gave a speech of that nature at your wedding, correct? Something about,
No, I made sure they did it.
well, that's too bad. It's a good speech. Um, okay, so it's been an hour at this point. Hopefully you learned a lot, and you not only learned a lot, but learned a way to move forward before your exam. And you can nail this down and then go back to doing your questions. The other reason I like to do this, do you work out? Do you exercise?
Yes, as much as I can.
When you
As long
exercise,
as I'm motivated.
right, you don't do one thing. People say, I want to become fit, or I want to become a good athlete. They don't do one thing. They do multiple things to achieve that goal. And my point is, yes, it's a multiple choice test, but it doesn't mean you just do multiple choice practice exams to prepare. You want to learn your vocabulary, maybe do some fill in the blank, things that may even be just a little bit harder than multiple choice. But more importantly, what I was getting at today, not only could this be a little harder than multiple choice, it focuses on the correct information. I can't say that enough. When you do multiple choice, the problem multiple choice problems, especially when you're in the beginning of studying, you're looking at wrong information. And especially in the beginning, that's just damaging to your progress. Does that make sense?
Makes sense. Yes.
And that's why on my website I have some fill in the blank, some mix and match, learning exercises where you're not looking at wrong information all the time. And I hope everybody understands that. So it scares you. And the first thing people do is they look at multiple choice questions because you're reading over and over again every option over and over. And although you may know real property movable, you're going to be thinking real property. Well, I read something about a chair and there's a dog and what was it? A tree, in the heat of the moment, you're like, I know I read it, but which one was the correct one? And that's why it's so important, this exercise we did today.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Good. All right. So with that being said, this is Joe, PrepAgent.com. And good luck, Daniel. We're going to talk again before you take your exam. And if you guys have any comments, please make it at the bottom below the YouTube, below the video on YouTube. That'd be great. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
All right. Bye.